these are two of our most valuable fountain pens here at Yoseko. Hi everyone, I'm Daisy from Yoseko Stationery and welcome to today's video. Today we are going to be looking at two very special pens that just arrived, the Pilot Namiki Emperor Rakucho Birds and Weeping Cherry Blossoms and Pilot Namiki Emperor Goldfish. These two pens are super spectacular with very, very beautiful designs, and we just got them in, so I thought it would be fun to do a little unboxing video to take a closer look at the amazing detail of these designs. So if you don't know much about Pilot Namiki Emperors, I will tell you a little bit about them in this video, but for a full rundown of Pilot Namiki Emperors, including a writing sample of the number 50 size nib that's found on Pilot Namiki Emperors, be sure to watch this video, which we'll link up here, all about Pilot Namiki Emperors. So Pilot Namiki Emperors, if you haven't guessed it by now, are an oversized pen. They are really, really massive pens the size of my head, and the size of these pens is kind of what makes them a really, really amazing canvas for the spectacular detailed artwork that is maki-e and urushi and all of these different techniques that we'll talk about in this video. So the size of these pens makes these pens really uniquely suited for maki-e and these other urushi techniques that artisans use to complete a picture along a pen's body. So Pilot Namiki Emperors are the largest pen that Pilot makes, and they come with the largest nib that Pilot makes. They come with a number 50 size nib, and they are also an eyedropper pen, which means that when you fill ink, they take ink directly into the barrel of the pen, which means that these pens really hold an amazing amount of ink. So that's all I'm gonna say for now about Pilot Namiki Emperors. Be sure to watch the video if you're curious about more, but let's take a closer look at the two beautiful designs that we got in, the Rakucho Birds and Weeping Cherry Blossoms and the Goldfish designs. All right, so you can see here on our pen tray that I have these two here, and they are definitely filling up like the full length of this Toyoko Craft pen tray, and that is pretty much as long as a pen can pretty much get. These are both Pilot Namiki Emperors. The one on the left here is the Rakucho Birds and Weeping Cherry Blossoms, and the one on the right is, of course, the Goldfish, as you can see from the goldfish motifs. It's interesting because these two pens have different bodies. This one on the left is the classic Pilot Namiki Emperor body with the rounded cap and the rounded barrel here. And then the Goldfish has more of a special design that is unique among other emperors. So you can see here it has like a very flat top and it has a very flat bottom here as well. And there's also no clip at all on this pen, which means that this one doesn't really have like a roll stop for when you're putting it on a desk, so you really have to be quite careful with it. However, because it doesn't have a clip and because it has this very flat cap finial and the very flat barrel finial, what that means is the artwork can essentially extend to the cap finial and to the bottom finial over here. So it kind of just makes the canvas for the artwork a little bit more, it increases the space, and it makes it really, really even more uniquely suited for maki-e artwork than, for example, this shape here. But let's take a look at these designs. I'll just move this one to the side for now. So here is the Rakucho Birds and Weeping Cherry Blossoms on the Pilot Namiki Emperor in the classic cigar shape. As you can see here, the design of this pen is throughout the entire pen body, and it even extends to the top of the cap and the bottom of the barrel over here. So the maki-e technique that's used along this pen to incorporate the design is Togidashi Taka maki-e. And what Togidashi Taka maki-e essentially means is it is a maki-e technique. Maki-e means sprinkled picture, And so these pictures, these motifs that are along the body of the pen are all done by hand. That is part of what makes these pens so stunning. And these pens also come with a signed name card by the artist who created this pen whenever you get a Pilot Namiki Maki-e pen. So those are all really cool, sort of collectible worthy details of these pens. But let's take a closer look at the design. So what Togidashi Taka Maki-e really means is that the surface of this pen here is three-dimensional, essentially. So as opposed to many other Maki-e pens where the picture and the motif is essentially sprinkled on and the design at the end is a flat type of Maki-e, that would be called Hira Maki-e. This design is actually 3D, so you can feel it when you run your fingers along the pen. You can feel the Rakucho birds and you can feel the cherry blossoms along the barrel of the pen. And that is where the Taka Maki-e comes in. Taka means raised. Taka Maki-e means raised Maki-e. So these pictures are essentially built up along the barrel of the pen. So how the artists do that is essentially through many repetitions of sprinkling charcoal powder, polishing down using charcoal, re-sprinkling it, covering it with lacquer, and then just redoing this over and over again. Timing is a really important part of doing any sort of maki-e. So anytime you sprinkle or you apply lacquer, it needs days to dry, and then you need days to polish it down. You reapply the lacquer and it needs days to dry again, which is why creating these pens is really such a magnificent feat, because it really does take a lot of time and a lot of care for every single pen. So the birds on this pen, the Rakucho birds, are supposed to be mythical birds that represent peace and serenity. And obviously they are also incorporating the weeping cherry blossom motif here, which you can see the cherry blossoms kind of interwoven with the birds. The birds are like sitting on the cherry blossom branches, as you can see here. And what's really cool is that the cherry blossoms incorporate as well a very little bit of radin. Radin is the incorporation of the inner lining of abalone shells or mother of pearl along the barrel of the pen to incorporate into artwork, so that when you rotate the pen and it reflects the light, you can see there is a really beautiful quality to it that looks just like the inside of an abalone shell or a pearl. Another special feature of this design is that there are these markings along the background of the pen. So in the background of the pen, there are these markings, and you might wonder what those are supposed to be. These are actually supposed to be reminiscent of the very unique markings of a cherry blossom tree stump. So the bottom of the cherry blossom tree, like the base of the cherry blossom tree, if anybody has seen one before, it has really unique markings along the wood of it, and that is what these markings along the barrel of the pen are trying to convey. So I thought that was a really cool feature. So here's a look at the full motif. And I'm just gonna uncap this pen here to take a look at that number 50 size nib, which is really a very large nib. It's an 18 karat gold nib, and as I was saying, it is Pilot's largest number nib, the number 50 nib. Okay, so that is the Rakucho birds and weeping cherry blossoms. Now let's take a look at the goldfish. So the goldfish is an even more special pen in some ways than the Rakucho birds and cherry blossoms because it has this different shape. It's not completely unique in the worlds of Pilot Namiki Emperors. There are other Pilot Namiki Emperors that come with this sort of flat top shape and flat bottom shape. But as I was saying before, it just kind of increases the space for the artwork and it makes it a little bit more outstanding because you can see it completely unobstructed. There's no clip at all. It just makes a better canvas for the artwork. So let's take a look. Okay, so here's the Pilot Namiki Emperor in the goldfish design. And this one, I'll spin it around so everyone can see the full design. You can see the goldfish are obviously here, and there are sort of ripples as well to represent ripples in water in a pond. And just kind of like lots of gold sprinkled dust elements to bring shine and luster to the artwork. And along this pen barrel also is the signature of the artist who created this pen. So you can see right there. And interestingly, this pen is actually, let me see if I can show you. Interestingly, this pen actually has Namiki over here on the back with a number. These are not limited edition pens. However, I do think they are serialized or like numbered just for Pilot to keep track of like their production. So let's talk a little bit about the maki-e technique used along this pen, because it's quite interesting, and this is actually the first time that I've heard about this technique. It's called Shishii Togidashi Taka maki-e. And what Shishii Togidashi Taka maki-e, what that means is it's basically a combination of 3 different techniques of maki-e. So it combines Togidashi maki-e, Taka maki-e, and Hira maki-e, which is flat maki-e. So what this means is that there are essentially 3 depths, essentially, if that makes sense. So the Rakucho and Cherry Blossom pen you can see here has a very, very prominent design. You can feel, when I say prominent, I mean it's really like popping out of the pen. It's very dimensional, and you can really feel that texture of the designs along the barrel. However, on the Goldfish pen, what they've done is they've actually taken that Taka maki-e, which is supposed to mean building up of the layers of the pen. They've actually taken that takamaki and they've further ground it down. They've polished it down so that there's actually a more subtle sort of gradation of dimensions along the body of the pen. So there's nothing that's quite as bumpy, I would say, as the feeling of the Rakucho birds. There are some elements of the motif that are built up as high as those birds, but because they have then sanded it down to make the artwork and the protrusion like a little bit more subtle, it kind of just tapers off gradually into the rest of the flattened design in the background, if that makes sense. So this is actually extremely difficult. I was doing research on what this actually means and like why it is more expensive than the other techniques. And this technique is actually a lot more difficult than the other techniques because of the timing. Because you have to wait for lacquer to dry at least 2 days. But if you're trying to achieve different layers of lacquer, different thicknesses of lacquer along the pen, where some areas are polished down and some areas are left thicker, the timing element is super, super important. You can only polish down after the lacquer has dried 2 days in this part, but in this part, you do want it to be a little bit lower. So it just involves a lot more timing from the artisan when they are thinking about how to create all those different layers and levels of artwork in the pen. So hopefully my explanation makes sense, but that is a look at the Pilot Namiki Emperor Goldfish here. You can see there's sort of 1, 2, 3 goldfish along the barrel, and there are sort of little, supposed to represent like little sandy areas under the water down here. And if we want to uncap it, you can see that is the same large oversized number 50 size 18 karat gold nib found on the Pilot Namiki Emperor. Now what I didn't show before is that these feeds are actually lacquered. So they're not ebonite feeds, but they are lacquered feeds. Okay, So there you have it. That is a look at the Pilot Namiki Emperor Goldfish and the Pilot Namiki Emperor Rakucho birds and Weeping Cherry Blossoms. These are two of our most valuable fountain pens here at Yoseka. We just got them in. I thought it'd be cool to show you the artwork along the barrel, especially given how large the barrel is on these pens. You can really see the details of the artwork standing out. And one of the most special parts of these pens is really feeling the artwork on these pens and kind of feeling how the raised artwork really comes alive in your hands for the Rakucho birds, and then kind of feeling the more subtle elements of that along the Goldfish barrel. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and taking a closer look at these very special Pilot Namiki Emperors. Let us know in the comments what you think of these two pens and which one you prefer. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!